the next installment in the Wrestlers What Retrospective of 2018 continues after our interlude. Yeah, expect some interludes to happen this time around. Like I said, I got sick in December at Christmas and I had to delay everything. So expect some interludes in between this retrospective series of the Wrestlers 2018 in WWE. I have been debating about Jay White, but I haven't watched all of his matches to keep track of everything, so I've just been reading Wikipedia articles and news sites and wrestling analysis that talked about Jay White's time, so there's a chance you might not see me cover that, and if I do, I might cover it at a later date. But by then it might be too late since Wrestle Kingdom would have passed. But anyways, let's talk about, speaking of New Japan Wrestling, we're talking about the 3 years in a row running, having a great time in WWE, the phenomenal one, AJ Styles, where Styles basically continues his record of how many years can Styles go at not being screwed up by booking? Oh, he's at 0 so far, and he's doing well. Okay, and sure enough, Styles had won the WWE Championship, so he was heading in as champion into the 2018 year, and being considered the first title holder crowned outside of North America, which is a board-faced lie because WWE doesn't recognize Antonio Inoki. I could pronounce that. So another wrestler. But this reign is considered non-canon to the WWE. Yeah. So, yeah, Styles is technically considered the first, even though really we all know someone else would have had it before him, but it's non-canon. And this was in 1979, and I'm surprised by that because Vince still thinks it's the 80s. So, anyways, as everyone knew, Styles was heading into 2018 as champion, and he was going to have an uphill battle heading into the Royal Rumble with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and it led to a very distinct kind of moment where he calls Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's team name Cammy, and everyone was like, oh god, they did not. Ryan Ward, oh god, they're destroying AJ Styles with this. Yeah, it's like the promos finally, the writers of the promos finally got to Styles and was like, we gotta destroy Styles. Because remember, Road Dogg was still the lead writer of SmackDown, and by the lead writer, I mean does everything Vince tells him to do because Ryan Ward was too good at his job. Seriously, Triple H's promos say what's so bad about success is making more sense nowadays. Sorry. But yeah, so Styles was going to have an uphill battle against Cammy. And the reason why I'm not covering Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn years because, let's be honest, after WrestleMania, everything just went downhill for them. Like, they started off looking good, but then it just crash. Especially when they kept trying to make us hate Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, when in reality we kind of like them and we kind of understand where they're coming from in their hatred of Shane McMahon. But because 4 and evil, it makes no sense. We gotta do this, even though Stone Cold did this a lot to Vince. So what was the difference? He's foreigners. They're foreigners, so we can't trust them. They're Canadians. Especially Sammy. He's descended from the Middle East. And considering how even the Middle East have issues with Sami Zayn because they don't want him in Saudi Arabia for a variety of reasons because of his Syrian descent, and considering certain circumstances of international relations that I will not get into politics about, they will never talk about it. And we will never give them the equal opportunities to be top faces in a storyline that clearly called for them to be faces. Yeah. So the Royal Rumble comes around. Styles is defending his title back to back. And Styles wins, but however, there was a technicality. The referee was being a dumbass. It's because because Styles pinned the wrong person. And Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn told Shane admitted it, that, yeah, it was true. But I hate you both, so I'm not going to give you the opportunity that you were so clearly robbed of. So I'm just going to mock you with the yes chance. Oh, authority figures being bullies to their employees. How cheerful. And then it would be announced that, decided by Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan, that Styles would defend against Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, John Cena, Dolph Ziggler, and Baron Corbin in a six-pack challenge at Fastlane. But before that, Shinsuke Nakamura would go on to win the Royal Rumble, which means we're finally going to get Shinsuke Nakamura, the King of Strong Style, versus the phenomenal one, AJ Styles, in the long-awaited sequel match of Wrestle Kingdom to WrestleMania. And Styles would go on to win that six-pack challenge, ensuring that, yes, unless this injury happens, thank God it doesn't, Styles would have his sequel match with Shinsuke Nakamura. And this would lead to a very, 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 very underwhelming feud where they just kept teasing each other and looking like they were going to hit each other, but they didn't. And the match at WrestleMania had to deliver, and unfortunately, WWE's clamping of restrictions came in and told them, don't do this, we gotta make Roman look strong, don't do this, we don't like it to be better than we don't want to be better than Wrestle Kingdom, even though we want to be better than everybody else, but we treat them as the realm of obscurity like we did to NXT about Drew McIntyre and our retcon again. Forget I mentioned that. And we also have an agenda, we have a preference, and we don't want strong wrestling styles in our wrestling program, but it's called sports entertainment because we're kind of petty like that, because Vince still won't let go that his daddy didn't want to give him a wrestling opportunity and just told him to be a promoter. I'm still on that opinion. So they would decide to have Styles beat Nakamura. Once again, they could have went with Nakamura being champion, but who cares, sadly, in Vince's world. And this led to Nakamura turning heel and him developing a low blow fetish, which was the highlight of his year, unfortunately. That should say something. And then the biggest insult to wrestling happened. Think about this. WrestleMania, Greatest Royal Rumble, Backlash, SmackDown, and Money in the Bank. 5 matches with AJ Styles and Nakamura in the same damn window of time. Less than, at least 2 months. They put 5 matches of Nakamura and Styles. A match everyone wanted to see was then turned into the match no one wanted to see anymore. Like, this had to have been intentional. There's no way that Vince thought this was, like... Okay, I can't believe I'm going to say this. At least the Sasha Banks and Charlotte feud, yeah, I'm going there, I'm going to actually defend that, had at least a sense of, we just got to cram as much history-making moment into this, even though we should probably spread it out more and not do hot potatoes. But at least that may have some sense. This had no historical moments. It was just, hey, let's do this because it's awesome and we can actually do something fantastic with it, and then ultimately ruin it and destroy fans' expectations with it. And the more tragic, fucked up part, 5 of those matches, only 1 at least came close to what we wanted from Styles and Nakamura in WWE. And that was Money in the Bank. Because Greatest Royal Rumble ended with a double countout, Backlash, despite being a no disqualification, ended in no contest. SmackDown was a predictable fest. Money in the Bank would be the only match everyone cared about. So then Styles would then move forward and feud with Rusev, who is finally getting a push after being shoved down the pipe because Vince doesn't like a foreigner getting organically popular. Like, okay, someone keeps arguing with me. I'm not going to mention the name out of respect. Someone had debate with me about how, and I respected their opinion, how merchandise selling was a key factor, and while that is sadly true, if we're going by that logic, Styles and Rusev should have, in that context, won because he was selling a lot of merchandise just for the Rusev Day. But no, Vince has a preference and he can't stand that because America! Don't fuck with America! I could make a reference how Vince is friends with someone who acts like that, but I am not going to get into the political stuff in the landscape right now in our currently divided country and the world. And Rusev and AJ Styles would go on to have an okay match. I honestly didn't read much about it. I was on vacation at the time when this match happened, and I haven't watched it. But from what I've heard, it was good. It was okay. It was the match that stole the show, but it was not an Extreme Rules match for God knows what reason in the show called Extreme Freaking Rules. Why? And then we finally would be announced to be given the opportunity of Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles. And fans were chanting, TNA! TNA! during their matchup at SummerSlam. And this was possibly Styles' best storyline of the year. Also, I'll get into a huge rant at the end of this video. Don't worry, it is about Styles' title reign. And sure enough, Styles' family was injected into this feud, and they actually did something they haven't done in years, is leave a show on a cliffhanger that made you want to see more, instead of giving a happy ending moment where everyone goes, hey, leaves the crowd hold happy. It's like the real world, right? It's not like every single day you're left wondering what the next day is going to be like, and you're anticipating or dreading what's going to happen next. Mostly dreading, considering how the world's acting nowadays. But, we gotta send the crowd home happy, even though we should kind of respect their intelligence, and they said they want a dramatic ending. And sure enough, Samoa Joe, stalking the Styles family, he had basically threatening to break into their house while the wife and son were at home. I mean, the children were at home. Was the darkest moment they'd done in the PG era. So it's like Triple H burst into Randy Orton's home and tried to murder him. I still wonder who all those other random people were. I'm still confused by that. I get he was married at the time, but where did all the other people come from? Were they security? Were they, if so, they sucked? Were they forced friends of his? I don't know. So this would lead to a match between AJ Styles and Samoa Joe again at Hell in a Cell, where Styles submitted to Samoa Joe during a roll-up that Styles got because the referee didn't see it and counted the pin. And Joe brought this up, complained about it, and said that it should have been rightly given to him, which he's technically right about, but Vince doesn't like Samoa Joe because he's a fat Samoan, as Vince so eloquently reportedly believes it, according to Bruce Picard. I think that was him, but it was someone who was close to Vince. Oh, Vince, your hypocritical body shaming has no bounds, does it? So, moving forward with that, we would get a match at Super Showdown where before that, Styles' family was stalked by Samoa Joe, and Styles threatened to bury Joe alive. Oh, don't worry, Vince is already up to that. And this would lead to a no disqualification, no countout match. No holds barred, they might as well just said. But that would be offensive. Which is why we call it Extreme Rules. But we're not calling it that. And Styles would defeat Samoa Joe by freaking submission. When a character is called the Samoan submission machine, sorry I mispronounced that. Wouldn't it make sense to not have Joe, who I just can't picture tapping out? I really can't. Like, I know he has tapped out in his career, but never I've known in WWE. It was also during that same night that Daniel Bryan would defeat The Miz to win #1 contendership, and this led to a problem. The match was scheduled to take place at Crown Jewel, which had that incident that I will not talk about, but I will reference that WWE did mention it. They did on TV. As a dismemberment joke, because clearly that makes contextual sense when you give into the context. They clearly have no sanctity for human life. Anyways, so John Cena bailed out on the show, saying, I'm not going because I have a moral guidance and I'm not stupid. And so did Daniel Bryan. He says, I'm not going. That should show you how much leeway Daniel Bryan had. And should show how much he had leeway with the whole I don't give a damn attitude he was displaying. So they had to reschedule the match to be on October 30th as part of a storyline to explain why this match would happen. And Styles would defeat Bryan via submission. And after the match, they were attacked by Samoa Joe. And Styles demanded that Joe would face him one more time at Crown Jewel, which everyone assumed that Joe would finally become champion. And I was like, oh, you gullible people. He's a fat Samoan to Vince. He doesn't see anything in him. Like his promo skills, maybe, but that's it. He doesn't see anything else in him. Not the talent, not the merchandise sales that he was making. Like he even said, Samoa Joe publicly said in an interview that the second he made his debut and the second they made his shirt public on the site, it sold out. He was the highest rated. He was the highest bought guy in the company, but that really meant nothing to Vince. You see, merchandise sales is clearly not important to Vince, because he doesn't create them. If it's not his organic, if it's not his constructed, very, very concise, very planned, very dry, dull way of producing things, he has no love for it. So, yeah. And this would lead to Styles getting a 365-day mark on his title reign, becoming the 8th man to have held the WWE title for a continuous reign for a full year. Huzzah! Everyone was actually hoping he would beat CM Punk's record. Rightfully so. Unlike the lazy incarnate. And people say I'm lazy. At least I'll go to work when I'm not sick. At least I'll go to work, unlike Mr. I'm lazy. I have millions of dollars. I could just stand around and do nothing. I don't have to put in the effort anymore. I can do whatever I want. I have clout. So, yeah. I'm still pissed off about how Lesnar basically gets to get away with it, and he doesn't have a convenient excuse. Like The Rock has an excuse. John Cena has an excuse. Let's see. Bryan even has an excuse. Because his concussion neck is in a delicate state to many people. But moving on. After Crown Jewel, it was announced that Styles would fight Brock Lesnar in the what was clearly planned the Survivor Series SmackDown vs. Raw event. Don't worry, we'll get to that. And that should say something. Paul Heyman had basically broken into the show and announced that Daniel Bryan was the better wrestler than Styles. Oh, wait, no, in-ring performer. And Styles responded by reminding him that he defeated Bryan several weeks, which led to Bryan getting triggered at the mere mention of his name, leading to another match between Styles and Bryan, which was rated 4 stars, so that should say something how good the match was. And Bryan would turn heel via low blow, ending Styles' reign at 371 days, which would tie him for the 8th longest reign in WWE Championship history, along with Randy Savage tying with him of his 1988 to 1989 title reign. Styles received his rematch against Bryan at TLC, and he sadly failed to regain the title. He would go on to team up with Mustafa Ali, and Mustafa Ali would beat Bryan. Huzzah! And sure enough, and there was one more moment for him to close out the year. Vince McMahon, as part of the Fresh Start Initiative, We Are the Authority, told Styles, I want to let the monster out. I want to let that animal in you out. And then proceeds to very, very, very weakly, but Styles has to sell it as the most devastating slap heard around the world like it was Becky's. And Styles responds by doing what so many people I bet want to do in that locker room to him. Punch Vince in the face. Fulfilling Vince's quota of getting beaten up by a wrestler who clearly Vince wouldn't like because of an idealist complex. Yeah, that ends Styles' year. He ends up punching Vince in the face. So I say that was a success. Now, he had a string of great performances, great moments, great storytelling he had going for him. There's just one major critique people have about Styles. Remember when he was champion and and he had the title for a full year and an extra 20 days? After Fastlane, Styles would never main event another pay-per-view event. I'm not kidding. Styles did not main event another pay-per-view for the rest of 2018 after Fastlane. Not WrestleMania, not SummerSlam. He wasn't even on the card at Survivor Series. Just, he wasn't booked for the show. He wasn't booked to main event the shows. Oh, he could main event television, but pay-per-views, that's clearly asking too much. We have Roman Reigns! Yeah, that was their excuse. They used Roman Reigns to main event Backlash with Samoa Joe in a no-stakes, no-purpose matchup. But they had to... But I don't get it. Were they trying to say Roman is bigger than the title, which is the biggest load of bullshit in the history of wrestling? That you basically are taking a title rank, a championship belt that's been around for over 50 years, has been through various through various phases of the company, from beginning, middle to the future, and you're saying that is not worth Roman Reigns? Roman Reigns is bigger than that belt. Roman Reigns is bigger than that. He's bigger. The title that should be I know this is an old idea. Unless, here's the thing. I'm a little bit progressive with this. Yeah, I know what I just said. But look, I'll only accept if the championship is not the main event, and I mean the main event, if they did a very special reason. Which is the Royal Rumble excuse you can make, or another world title. Okay, not really. The Universal title sucks. Or say if it was The Undertaker's last match, which they should have done at last year's at the WrestleMania back in 2017, but Vince wants to kill The Undertaker for some vindictive reason. At least that's my conspiracy theory. But yeah, Styles doesn't get a reason for why he doesn't main event the shows when he was champion. Like, he didn't even main event Extreme Rules and he was WWE champion. They gave it to the Intercontinental title because... why? That confused me. That was the one big critique everyone had about Styles this 2018. The fact that he was WWE champion for the most of the year, and they didn't give him the main event after Fastlane. After Fastlane, it was done. He was not even being treated as the top dog in WWE. He was the big fish in a small pond, and Roman Reigns was a great whale in a teardrop. Yes, I'm quoting The Rock. So clearly that means that the title meant nothing to Vince. So what was the point? Like, why do we even have championships? Why not we just rename the company Roman Reigns at that point? Like that. And even when Roman Reigns got sick, I hope he does well. I hope he kicks leukemia's ass. I'll cover Roman Reigns next. Even then, they still didn't want to give the WWE Championship the main event. They didn't have him main event. They didn't have the WWE Championship when it went to Bryan main event TLC. I bet the only reason they had the WWE Championship main event, the Survivor Series event, was because Lesnar's on the card. Because Lesnar was champion. That's really the only explanation you can come up with nowadays, that unless you're Lesnar, unless you're Roman, or you're a part-timer, or a veteran who's been around for decades, or 2 decades, John Cena, I mean, then you will be main eventing regardless of having the world title around your waist and not have any significant tension or storyline element or development or any special occasion that has a unique reason that doesn't require the title. Like, NXT got this right. Like, yeah, a lot of people were saying they wish the NXT title did main event over Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano's street fight match. But here's the difference. Whereas Samoa Joe and Roman Reigns was just a one-off match that had no importance whatsoever, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa's feud was that. A feud that was extending the story and was showcasing Johnny Gargano's descent into darkness, embracing his inner evil, becoming the very thing he hated. That was the big difference. Like, NXT knew when to do that trick, and main roster doesn't know when to not do that trick. So yeah, that was the biggest critique everyone had about Styles. Like, it wasn't his fault, it was the booking's fault, and those who were in power that favored one guy over the other, or veterans who were established veterans, or lazy part-timers who have money, who have all the money in the world, but don't want to put in the effort to give us what we want in terms of product. But, yeah. That was the one critique people had. Styles being champion, he wasn't main eventing the big shows anymore. The people have spoken! Shame, Vince! Shame! New Day. So, yeah, Styles, besides that one major problem that Styles had to deal with, Styles had a big successful 2018. I'm curious to know what he's going to do for 2019. His first match, his big match is going to be at the Royal Rumble, where he's going to fight Daniel Bryan. But other than that, the fact that he's the guy that wants to stay on SmackDown and be like what The Undertaker was to SmackDown, be the homegrown guy of SmackDown, be the house that AJ Styles built, he even admitted that it is going to inevitably happen. He is going to go to Raw inevitably. He has to eventually go to Raw. And that's going to be a sad day for SmackDown, because I can't imagine Styles leaving SmackDown. I can't imagine him not being on Raw. I can't imagine him being on Raw now, even though he clearly has been on Raw before. But it was such a short amount of time and there was not really big eventful stuff happening, than, hey, it's AJ Styles, that it really meant anything on that. Like, yeah, there was Chris Jericho's feud with him, but really you could just transition that to SmackDown. And last but not least, I even said this in my All Elite Wrestling announcement video, along with Double or Nothing, that I would kind of wish Styles leaves WWE this year or next year to do what Terry Funk did for ECW, where he goes ahead and help cultivate AEW to be this place to be at. He could do what Terry Funk did. That's a dream scenario, though, at the very least. I know that most likely will not happen, but a guy can dream. God can dream. So yeah, my next video retrospective of the wrestler's year will be about Roman Reigns and the circumstances surrounding his very sudden ending of his 2018. And certain comments that people have made about the certain incident of leukemia that has seriously pissed me off. And a lot of others who even didn't like Roman Reigns but clearly knew what was real and what wasn't. But still, I'll get to that when I can. And that probably will be on Thursday or Friday, I think. Because I do believe Heroes in Crisis from DC Comics comes out on Wednesday. So I'll be talking about that video as well, that comic as well. Yeah, I told you, there's going to be some interludes going on to make up for all this and certain delays I've had. So this was Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate. Stay tuned for more phenomenal